Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Hilary DeCesare. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, a Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here this wonderful evening. How are you?
Christina, I'm doing so great, and I am just so grateful to be here with you. So excited for our conversation today.
Oh my God, we have an exciting conversation planned for our Savvy listeners. We're going to discuss your new upcoming book, Relaunch, Spark Your Heart to Ignite Your Life. I love that. And also the CORE method, CORE method to relaunch your business revenue. Because if you're not making revenue or profit, you're not growing, and you're eventually probably going to die. So it's probably a very important topic, especially recently with all the craziness going on with banks. But before we go there, I'd love for you to just share a teeny bit of your backstory with our listeners.
Well, it's interesting because we're going to talk about the Silicon Valley, because that's where I grew up for my, initial business. I was at Oracle, a high-tech company, for almost 10 years. And then I went out and started to help a lot of the venture capital firms around their CEOs and executive staff relaunch their businesses and scale their businesses. And I got the bug of entrepreneurship, and I knew I wanted to do it. And so I started to launch my own businesses. And with that came this passion where I was noticing that there was a disconnect out there with executives, with entrepreneurs that were either starting those businesses or trying to scale them from 6 to 7 figure. And it had to do with the core. There was a problem with the basic of the core. And if you think about core being something that you do in the gym, right? You always have to, people always tell you got to work on the core before you work on anything else. That midsection, that what holds everyone up, what makes you strong. Well, people forget the basics of the foundation of business start with the core. And you may have had this great success out of the gates. Wow, I started to have, month over month revenue, and then it stopped. And you're like, what happened? And it's usually because you haven't focused enough on that foundation. And for those that are already into the high 6 figures or 7 figures, and then they have this problem where they haven't really focused on the core. There's a lot that needs to be done to take them back to develop that strength, that ability to then go ahead and scale and create revenue. And so I always say, do it as soon as you can. That's the key. Make sure, and having, like I said, I've been doing this for, so many years. I've been coaching entrepreneurs, executives for over 2 decades. I never stopped doing it. And that is the one thing that I notice when I go in and I do an assessment on the executive, whether it's, part of the C-suite or it's the entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur. I put them through a core assessment. And it's fascinating to see that even the ones that have done it multiple times, had successes, sometimes we forget, right? Just like when you go to the gym, sometimes we forget or we don't want to do the things that we don't like.
Oh, now, interestingly, I just listened to a business owner recently today on his podcast, and one core thing he kind of didn't realize for a number of years, and it hurt his business, almost put him out, was the fact of building that relationship with people. I find that when I came out as doing in my business, and the number of people I spoke to, we were all so wrapped up in get the clients. And without realizing the clients are people, real life people who you're here to serve them in some fashion. You have something to deliver to them in a product, service, or information. But when you come from that attitude, you just need to get the sale. You're forgetting about why you really started a business, which is to help people.
You know what? That in itself, that is such a big takeaway. And the other one that I would say, and it's really in the C for core, it's the clarity. We all think, if I can do this for one, let me do it for more. I'll make more money by spreading my net wider. And a lot of times what happens is people don't realize that, when you start to look at prioritizing as you're gaining clarity, and I put them through something I call the RISE tool to really help with narrowing down. You can't do it all. You can't, especially if you have a smaller team. So you better be super clear on what are you really going for? What is that? Like, what is going to give you the most impact? When you start out and you're thinking about, we're still in Q1, we're still in the early phases of this year, but no matter where you are, which quarter, look at it from this perspective. You always have to have for the year a revenue goal. And people often say, goal setting, is it really worth it? And you know what it does? It focuses you. It gains clarity on what you're supposed to be focused on. And the biggest problem that entrepreneurs have is that everything can be a shiny penny. Everything can be a distraction. Oh, I could do that. Or you meet with someone and they've got all of this energy and you're like, oh, I just want to work with you. How can we work together? And that conversation takes you off into a different area. So, there is a great, it was Warren Buffett who said the biggest thing you can really focus on is picking and being clear, gaining that clarity and sticking with it. And we change. And so goal setting, what does goal setting do? It allows you to stick with what you're putting out there.
Yeah. And more to the point, being clear about where that vision is. Here's our goals, but what's our greatest vision, and be concise with being able to put that forth. I remember being many years ago at a BNI meeting and they said, okay, every person, you get 30 seconds to tell everyone what you're about, what you do, and how you help people.
Yeah.
Most people took a minute or two. They didn't stay in 30 seconds, but you really should be able to be that concise with what you're giving to the world and in a very short couple sentences.
And I would take it even further and say, as you simplify your message, there is a elevator pitch that you're doing, and then there's the personal power pitch that we talk about. And the personal power pitch is really getting at the why, right? And Simon Sinek said it the best when he said, people don't buy the what, they buy the why. And so many people don't have an answer to that. It's like, we've talked about this before we started, relaunch. Relaunches are happening globally. They're happening professionally. They're happening personally. And what is a relaunch? A relaunch is something that changes up the game. It is a shift. It is a transition. You have a choice to transition to a transformation, something positive from the experience or not. And relaunches can be both positive and negative. We usually associate them with the negative, right? But as you start to get on that, and I say with the O is always that, the organization, the optimization of really understanding what you're going for. Why did you create the business? Why are you doing what you're doing? So as relaunches happen, like we just had this week with the bank crisis, you're not taken off your path by every single global relaunch that happens. You have a focus, you have your North Star, and you go towards that. And it's like every single day, I call it tune in. You've got to be tuning in to your vision, to those goals. And when you can do that, when you can truly tune in instead of tune out, that's what most people do when they start to get, high levels of cortisol, high levels of stress. They're like, frozen. I'm stuck, Hilary. I'm overwhelmed. I'm underwhelmed. But really, a tune-in process takes you out. And I'm going to jump ahead because R is revenue. It's the revenue. It's the repeatable revenue that so few businesses can obtain. But the E is what I really want to hit with the tune-in process. E is energy. And I have something that I go deeply into in the book, and it's called 3HQ. And the H's are head, heart, higher self. And it came out of the ability of like IQ, your intelligence level, EQ, you're emotionally, how emotionally, connected are you? And in today's world, it's not about siloing out IQ and EQ. It's really about leaning towards getting out of your head, that first H, tapping into the heart, and literally making an ever loop with both of those, combining them. And then when you do that, you can tap into your higher self. And in my belief system, the higher self is the best version of you. When you know it. I mean, Christina, when you are just in that zone, you know when you're there. That's your higher self. That's like, gosh, things just came to me. I was able to write this. I was able to do this. I couldn't say anything wrong. I was in that zone. I was in that higher self place. But higher self is also a level of energy. The energy, when you're doing something and you're feeling like you're angry, you're blaming things, like, why isn't this really happening?
It's like a negative loop. Yeah.
It is. It's a negative loop. And so you try to create something from that place and it doesn't work. So then you beat yourself even up more. And then you have the self-sabotage. And then you're like, I'm an imposter. All these different things start to propagate that even more. So you got to tune in first that this is happening. Tune into the challenge that you're having that you can't solve. And then what I like to do, that's the first part. The second part, which is the best, is that you get to change your channel. And how do you do that? You tune into your favorite song, the song that lights you up, the song that, like, when you listen to it, you can't be low energy. So what would be your song? Do you have a song or do you have a genre of music that you just love? When you hear it, you're like, it just makes you feel good.
Swing, actually, like Glenn Miller and 1940s. I really love that.
I'm right there with you. I think that's one of my favorite ones as well. So
and
when
it's interesting. What I'm getting from you, Hilary, though, is that while people are going through this and let's say things are difficult, they're getting worried about what's going on in the world. What's interesting about the shift is sometimes if you just step back, like you said, just breathe, and you begin to be like, okay, this isn't so bad because look what's going on. We have ChatGPT, and I'm hearing from a number of industries how they're mobilizing and optimizing this particular new tool to actually save time and money. In which case, there's a lot of opportunities where things are really difficult. But if you take a slight kind of step back, you can say like, well, you know what? Things are difficult. There's some crazy stuff happening, but there's also a lot of great opportunities.
And this all just came to be in the last couple months.
Yeah.
We have been given access to this to free up a lot of, that time where you're like, I don't even know where to start. And so when you elevate yourself, you tune into that song, you get to a different level. Guess what happens? You start to be able to see some of the things that you weren't able to see before. Right? Law of attraction states, you're attracted to what you put out there, what comes back. But there's also law of resonance, which is how are you resonating? Because when you resonate at a higher level, that's what you're bringing in, the answers to those questions. And so once you've done that tune in process, you've elevated, you changed your state, right? Tony Robbins always says, change your state. Music is such a gift. It literally ties the head with the heart and it elevates you to the higher self so that then you can visualize, like, what are you really going for? If you want a 7-figure business, what does that look like to you? How do you show up? What are you wearing? What are you doing? Are you on stages? Are you doing, are you selling things in a brick and mortar store? What is it? And being able to gain clarity back to the core of it all. And once you do that, I bring neuroscience into this. So I actually ask people once they're visualizing to take an internal picture to really bring out the color. And I do it with a very simple process called click, where you literally are visualizing this in your mind. You're tuning into your song. And then I ask you, what's the color that's really standing out? Because there's something very impactful that happens in your brain with color. And it could be yellow, it could be green, blue, whatever it is. And then I say, I'm going to ask you, do you remember the old Bewitched? That show Bewitched?
I love it. Yeah.
Elizabeth Montgomery. And she like twinkled her little nose, right? She wiggled it. Well, I always wanted to do something. So I couldn't ever do my nose like that. So instead, I pick this whole click. And what you do with a click is you literally are taking an internal picture of the vision of what you're trying to create, the colors, the feelings, and you close your eyes And then you say click 3 times. And as you say click, you open your eyes and you close your eyes. And with every click, it's like a shutter on a camera, taking that picture, storing it in that long-term memory so that you can go back to it like a photo album and recall, what are you trying to really do? Because again, we lose, as entrepreneurs, we lose our direction often by getting distracted. It takes you back to, wait, let me check out those pictures again. And you can flip through those. And then the step 4 of the process of tune in is at that point, you're going to think about what will create momentum towards that picture in your mind. What is it that you can do right now? Don't put it off. You're tuned in. You got the song. You got, the swing going in your bones and through your body. And it's at that level you want to create.
Yeah.
Right? You want to create your emails. If you're writing a book, you want to start writing the book. Anytime, if I'm going on a podcast, I'm going to talk to you, I tuned in. I elevated my energy because do I want to show up and I'm talking like this and it's been a long day? Or do I want to show up and say, you know what? This works. This works for people that are listening right now. Try it because it'll change your life. And I'm at the level right now where no doubt, and I've seen it thousands of times over. So in your day today and in your days tomorrow, because it's a muscle, to use the process of core, use the process of building it up, creating this muscle that allows for you to bring in your own version of success.
I love that, Hilary. This recalls many years ago, I was starting out Savvy, my biz. And I remember, one more sale, I'll go out and I'll relax or I'll take a break and I'd be there 16 hours. I'd be, hitting my head on the desk. And a caller, one of the guests that came on was talking about how important being in nature is. Like spend 30 minutes for 30 days in nature. It was something she had done for her group as a challenge. And I said to my listeners, I'm going to do it for 30 days. It made such an impact, just 30 minutes. That and maybe bringing a song with you as you take a walk. And she said, maybe you're in the city, no biggie, just walk to the park or walk around where there's some trees. It's just, and it makes a difference just getting out of maybe you're stuck in a negative environment, things are going badly. Just stepping away sometimes can make the biggest impact.
Absolutely. And you hear about people who have morning routines. Yeah. So my morning routine includes, what's my song of the day? And I look at my calendar and I look at what do I need to bring? How do I need to show up? And if there's those challenging meetings that we all have, then I put more of that like Rocky into my song of the day, and if it's more of like, I need to be creative, I think of a different song and I use that to tune in constantly. And again, initially it might take you a few minutes to do this, but then you get the muscle that builds up and it's like, I can do my, reps and it's not as like, exhausting to me because you built the core.
Yeah. And I love that you say that because everything in life takes time to build, whether it's a business or workout or whatever, it's going to take time to get comfortable. And honestly, when you get comfortable, let's look at ways we can grow even further because that's also where the growth is as we get uncomfortable.
Christina, 100%. And so I'm asking people to tune in versus tuning out and start doing it today.
Awesome. Well, this has been fabulous. I know we can go on many more hours, but I don't want us to leave without everyone finding out how they can get their very own copy of Relaunch, Spark Your Heart to Ignite Your Life. How can they do that?
Well, you can go to the relaunch.com. It's our website. And you can also go to Amazon.
Awesome. Well, I just have to thank you again, Hilary. It's been a great pleasure connecting and meeting you this evening. And thank you for sharing with our Savvy audience.
Christina, it's so much fun being with you.
Thank you.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more Savvy episodes and Savvy Biz Tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.